of our tax revenue, and municipal government uses 26% of those dollars, and the school is at 46%. Let's talk about the level services budget. This is the second column on your green sheet. In the level services budget, our estimated revenue is the same. Our fixed cost in the level services budget is slightly more than in the balanced budget, and the reason for that is that the additional employees require employee benefits, and those numbers have been accounted for in the $12,698,302. On the municipal side, we have restored those cuts that I elaborated on a minute ago, and in the school side, we have, and I'll go through what those are, have added all of the cuts that we talked about in the balanced budget, plus 8 additional teaching positions. So the gap is $1,525,282. And what that means is that in order to fund a level services budget, we will have to raise our levy limit to allow taxation of an additional $1.525 million. So what does the override provide for? General government, it restores the $305,000 that we cut from the budget to balance it, and it puts in a human resource position half-time to full-time and adds a half-time IT position. In the schools, it restores approximately $500,000 in cuts. Those are the 10 teaching positions and the things I iterated a little while ago. It adds 5 teachers at the middle school, 1 teacher at the high school to address high class size, and adds 2 special education teachers. Allows the purchase of new text, U.S. history, Spanish, physics, and reading, and adds $153,700 of additional vocational tech assessment due to increased enrollment. And I was informed earlier this evening that it's not necessarily increased enrollment, but it's got to do with the formula and our assessment rather than what looks to be a large influx of students. And by the way, I believe there's someone here from the superintendent from the vocational school that might answer any questions you might have later regarding. Okay, so the cost of an override. 1 year or first of 3 years. In other words, whether we have and vote a 1-year override or a 3-year override, the first year cost is exactly the same. And that increase has been calculated to be 56 cents on the tax rate. And that's a base tax rate that we currently have for 2007. So if you want to calculate the impact of this override on your own personal property, the formulator for calculating individual override impact is go to your tax bill, find your assessed valuation for both your property and your home, multiply it by the tax increase, which is 0.56 cents, and divide it by 1,000. So an example of this would be the average home in North Reading is just a little over $500,000. I've chosen $500,000 as a round figure. Times the 0.56 divided by 1,000 is $280 on your tax bill this current year if you vote the override for 2008, or $5.38 per week. What are the budget plans we have investigated? The financial planning team, which consists of the chairs and vice chairs of the Board of Selectmen, the school committee, finance committee, town administrator, finance director, school superintendent, and business manager, have met monthly, more frequently, every other week, to develop the following budget plans. The balanced budget, which I reviewed earlier, the level services budget, which I just completed, and then the 3-year plan. And I'm going to take you into that a little bit just so you get an idea of what we're dealing with. So in a 3-year plan, our estimated revenues for 2008, 2009, and 2010 are in the upper row of the slide. I won't repeat the numbers. And our fixed cost numbers of 12,698,302. And you notice that it takes a little dip, and that's because we get some heavy retirement fees in this particular year, and assessments that we don't expect to have in 2009 and 10. But as you can see, as you get to 2009, after you take this little blip out, it's on the increase again. The municipal budget is figured on the additions that I just spoke to on our level services budget. And then in FY 2009, we would be inserting the addition of 4 firefighters. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But the 4 firefighters would permit a move to ALS for our ambulance service and would provide coverage for the 2-in, 2-out rule associated with dealing with a structure plan. And there would be no additional increases in employees in FY 2010. On the school side, I'll go into the numbers because I don't have them in my head, but they're on the next slide, I believe. So if you look at the accumulated gap, what you see here is the $1,525,282, which I alluded to in the level services budget. And then the following year, we would have a gap. This is assuming that we execute this budget, $2,963,638. And then in FY 2010, we would need $3,949,261. So in a one-year plan, we would be asking for an override for $1,525,282. In a 3-year plan, we would be asking for an amount that would cover the accumulated gap, this figure here, for the second override question. And by the way, these school numbers are a little more than what the school department might present in a minute or two, and that's because within this school budget, we've included the voc tech assessment, which is not in the normal school budget. It's a separate line item. It's not the responsibility of our school committee or school department for those numbers. So how will a 3-year plan be implemented? The Board of Selectmen, School Committee, and Finance Committee will commit to cap expenditures as defined in the 3-year plan presented this evening. That's the previous slide. Taxes will only be raised to that required to fund the committed budget for each preceding fiscal year. So in a 3-year plan, if we take a look at what this means, the dark blue represents the tax rate that we'd be forecasting based on a revenue plan without an override. And the light blue represents the tax rate as it would increase using the FY 2007 base for fiscal years 2008, 9, and 10. So you can see that the difference in tax rate, projected tax rate with the 3-year plan in year 2010, the difference is, the two numbers are $12.64 for a non-override and a $14.10 tax rate if a 3-year override was passed. I'm sure you want to know exactly what the elements of this are. So the elements of the tax rate, as I said earlier, was Proposition 2.5 is our levy limit. It's permitted to increase that limit 2.5% each year and add to it new growth. In other words, homes and developments that go on over the course of the year, the assessors can add those to the numbers, which increases our overall tax base. Debt overrides or exempt debt are those that we vote at a town meeting and then in an override election. And those debt overrides don't raise the levy limit. They are actually allow you to fund those projects. And when those projects are completed and the debt is paid off, then in fact, that number goes away. Where the override that we're asking for tonight raises the levy limit, and it stays there. And then it increases at 2.5% based on the new levy limit. So, in the debt override area, currently, there's a lot of debt, but the main debt that we've seen increases over the past couple of years include the Hood, Little, and Batchelder renovations, less state reimbursement. We did get reimbursement for the Hood and the Little. We're hoping to get reimbursement for the Batchelder, and I'll go into that in a minute. school modular classrooms, the Smith property that we took several years ago, and the police station project. In the general override, what we are discussing tonight, it raises the levy limit. So, if we look at a 3-year plan tax increase, and this is looking at it without bachelor reimbursement. We're making applications. In 2008, the state is implementing a new program, and we hope that we will see some reimbursement. But without reimbursement, if you look at the elements of the tax rate for 2008, the levy limit increase, right, this darker blue, the bottom, the 45 cents, that's automatic, based on our need and vote of town meeting, of course. But that's the cap to which we can raise without an override. This 29 cents is exempt debt that currently is in bands. In other words, on temporary borrowing. There's about $9 million in temporary borrowing. So what we've been paying for the past couple of years is the interest on it and not the principal. And as we go forward in 2009, as we convert that to permanent debt, we start to pay off the debt increases. So the exempt debt increase here is interest in the beginning of the conversion of debt, and then it goes down because we've got the debt in a stream. If it's a 20-year debt, we're paying an annual premium and interest, and that will go down over time. And then we have our 56 cents here, which is the override tax increase. So the total that you would see if you pass the override for 2008 would be a $1.30 increase in the tax rate. And if we look out to 2009, it'd be an additional $1.09 with the following breakdown. And then in 2010, 88 cents with the following breakdown. This is based on the 3-year plan with a commitment from the school department, Board of Selectmen, to hold to those numbers for the next 3 years. Let's look at the same thing. If we get the bachelor reimbursement, as you can see now, there's about $6 million in bands out on the bachelor. We've been holding, hoping that we get reimbursement. If we get reimbursement, we get that in one lump sum check. We pay off that band, and it goes away. And you can see that all of a sudden the 10 cent went to 4, and in fact, we actually have a reduction of 13 cents in the exempt debt, overall exempt debt that we're paying. So that the numbers be 130 wouldn't change in 2008, and 2009 it's $1.03, and it goes to 70 cents. So let's look at what that means to everybody. And again, you can use the same formula to calculate this, and you can look at each piece of it if you want, by just multiplying the tax increase for the override and what's already been voted. What's already been voted is essentially our Prop 2.5 and our exempt debt. So, these are the numbers here. One is with no batch reimbursement. This is the same set of numbers I spoke of a few minutes ago with the bachelor reimbursement. And if you took a $500,000 home and you looked at the override impact of $5,000 home for the first year, and you're talking about the total tax increase now, not just the override, of $650. So how do you calculate your tax impact? You take the dollar numbers for each year, and you, again, as I said, go to your tax bill, look up your assessed valuation, and multiply it by the tax increase divided by 1,000. And the sample, again, is the average home of $500,000. So if you're looking at an average home of $500,000, we just kind of run some numbers. For FY 2008, the override will cost you $280. keep in mind that these numbers